Hello and welcome to another edition of the Low-Code Cafe. This is episode number 62, and I'm your guest host, Dale Warner. Bogdan is away on important assignment today, so I'll be taking the reins. Today we're going to be talking about continuing our series on Integrate Anything and talking about full calendar. As I look at the comments, I see already some interest in this as people are saying that they've been asked to do calendars for their clients many times. So hopefully this will be a helpful demonstration. This is a technical webinar that we do every Wednesday, 10 a.m. Central Standard. It's it's a technical webinar for our community. We do updates, demos, hands-on coding, and that's the biggest part. I'll also do some stories and tips from the trenches segment. We record every episode, and there are 60 odd hours of content out on our Plantain App YouTube channel. So I encourage you to sign up for that if you're not signed up for it already. Today's agenda, and this is close. We're going to have community updates from Chad. I'll do a from the trenches segment, and then the majority of this will be given to Radu to talk about the full calendar. You can engage with us in a number of ways. Please use the chat window or the Q&A. There is a feedback form associated with this webinar, and we appreciate and read every bit of feedback that you give to us. And so with that, I am going to ask Chad to present.
Awesome. Thank you, Dale. So what I wanted to talk about today is digital transformation, because we're seeing this term come up a lot within the community. And really, what is it? Because it's not just a single thing. And there's a lot of people there that might be like, oh, you know, I'm doing this, or I already know this and stuff. And that's fantastic. Because one thing I actually really want to ask is, with our community updates, one key piece that the idea, the main focus behind it is to have myself and potentially others as I bring them in, present different use cases, different creations, different builds and stuff that the community has done. So if you watching this webinar right now, if you have any creation that you've done, small, large, interesting, basic, it doesn't matter. I want to start getting some of the ideas out there. Like Mark said in the chat here, he has a lot of customers asking for calendars. We're doing a calendar today. There could be something that you're doing that you think is just like not interesting or not like a key piece, but maybe others aren't doing it. Maybe people haven't thought about it. Maybe it's a good way about going about a different type of process, because there's different types and different ways you can do these kind of digital transformations. And if you have something out there, I'd love to either bring you on, or if you don't want to speak live, I can do the presentation myself in kind of slideshow format, give them an idea of what you're doing, show them the tools, talk about your use case. And of course, your name and your business will be out there and will be presented with it too. It's not going to be something that's anonymized. So if you do have anything, I'm going to throw my email in the chat, chad.weiss@plantinapp.com. So that's chad.weiss@plantinapp.com. And feel free to just reach out to me at any time, and we'll get in contact, and we'll talk about what you're doing, why it's great, and help show everybody else. But with digital transformation, so what is it? The biggest thing is it's a bit of a shift in a sense. So it's companies moving their processes, whether that's a process model, a business model, domain setup, or even their organizational, which can actually involve the community and the culture within their company. That kind of a shift over towards the digital world, moving away from single ERP systems or ERP monolithic suites to something that allows you to have some flexibility with it. And with a lot of these changes, like if we just look at, say, the process type, for an example, there's 3 different stages that you'll generally go through all of them. And in the end, they all pretty much line up with the relationships that your companies are going to have with your customers. So overhaul the processes, overhaul the operations, and then overhaul that relationship with the customers is kind of the mentality and the methods you want to work through with these items. And right now, what we're seeing in the market is roughly 70% of companies are focusing on delivering a better customer experience through digital transformation. I mean, you know, we'd love to see that all be at 100%. We want companies to actually care about their customers, but On the flip side, we can also probably think of a few companies ourselves that aren't doing that. I kid, I'm in Canada, so I don't actually have to deal with, but I do have quite a few American friends, and I hear about it quite a bit. But there are going to be companies like that around the world that aren't focusing on it. So making sure that you have a good strategy when you're going to be working with your customers on these types of changes is going to make sure that we can help, of course, push that number higher of success, get it in a lot more minds, because this is something that a lot of people simply aren't aware of the term of digital transformation. Those who are in the development sector, you're probably very aware of it, but I'm talking with the business level users, those people that you'll essentially have to win over to get your project off the ground and get things moving forward within your business. Because in a lot of cases, there are many companies out there who are using traditional methods, not through a low-code tool like PlanSnap, where if they want to get something done, they have to go to their IT team, they have to start scheduling things, they then get told that, oh, we're so busy, we're going to not be able to look at this for about 6 months or so, and then that gets pushed back, and then when they eventually get it into their system, they find out that they can't even get close to their scope, so eventually they settle for a temporary system that eventually becomes permanent, because we've all been there. You do something temporary and it's temper permanent. If that's even the term that people use, I'm not quite sure, but that is the unfortunate case of what happens in a lot of these situations. So focusing on a specific template in a way, not so much a template of this is the only one way to do it, because that's what we're getting away from with low code, but the idea of having that flexibility, that ability to go in and choose and define what you want along the way is definitely going to be something that is huge within digital transformation. And one thing I actually wanted to talk about, so I was actually recently just talking to a customer, and they're doing things through some DNS Sharp modules. They're just piecing pieces together, but they have one client in particular, one of their larger clients, in fact, where the client will constantly come to them and say, hey, we're selling all these tickets this week, and in 2 days I need it set up so that somebody can buy a table for 10, invite all their people, or maybe it's all of a sudden set up at a hotel, so now it needs to automatically do hotel reservations or any other kind of accommodation setups. And the interesting thing is, these are always things that that client has to handle in, sorry, I should specify. I'm going to say customer when I'm talking about the DNS Sharp customer, and client when I'm talking about their client. So our customer, they always have to go in and do this very rapidly. Like within 2 days, the change has to be done. And during that process, what they were saying is they have to do some research to figure out exactly what the client actually wants, what their end goal is throughout it, and everything they have to do along the way, because hotel booking, all that kind of stuff, that's going to be something new that they haven't done previously with that client. And in the end, what he actually said to me was, before the pandemic, because the pandemic hit everyone quite rapidly, he was nearing the point of wanting to just give up on everything, because they had so many of those large clients that they just simply couldn't keep up. So when I was talking to them about PlanSnap, the biggest thing I was saying was, that's never a situation you should be in. You shouldn't say, I'm too successful, I just want to give up. It's there's going to be better ways to do something. Maybe you need to hire more people. That is something that he's considering, of course, but he doesn't want to, because he likes the size of his team, and that could definitely be a limiting factor. But PlanSnap itself, and what we kind of dived into when we were talking about, is that reusability within low code to create some of those actions or create some of those workflows that can be easily added upon. And then, of course, just the simplicity of developing in low code is something that could bring back that enjoyment that he has. Because he genuinely, this man's like 72 years old, so he's doing this as a passion project at this point. He genuinely does love what he does. And with his team, they love it as well. So it's one of those things where, depending on how you do it, how you want to tackle digital transformation and what tools you're using along the way, can either be a great experience or a bad one. And I think that's why we see only 70% of companies do it, and why there's the whole temporary permanent solutions that are coming in place. But the biggest thing I wanted to kind of say today, as this is more of just a discussion about what digital transformation is, you could do many webinars on just what digital transformation is, so we're not going to cover it in depth, of course, is getting that idea out there, getting the steps along the way of what you might want to be thinking about, because every company is going to be different on what they need, of course. We all know that. And having a tool like PlanSnap in your back pocket, maybe we're not the right one for every single fit. Not saying we're a one size fits all. And honestly, in some cases, low code might not even be the answer. But when it is the answer, having a good tool in your back pocket to rekey or reuse key elements along the way and focus on the needs of that client that you have, that's going to help you in the end.
Yeah, I think we demonstrate here week by week how far you can get in a short amount of time. And that's the kind of digital transformation that I think low code brings to the equation. All right,
Exactly.
Thanks, Chad. So I am going to move on to the From the Trenches segment. And we'll do a little bit of talking and a little bit of demonstration here today. Because we're coming up on one of our software retreat deadlines, I just thought I'd recap that. Later this week, September 30th, is the last day to purchase new licenses for many of the DNN Sharp modules. Now, this is particularly talking about our modules. Plant an App is not impacted by this announcement or this policy. So we are continuing with Action Form and Search Boost and all of their related add-ons. Those remain available in the DNN community in the store, and those will continue to remain available and supported in a variety of ways. But all of our other products not listed there are the last day to purchase new licenses is September 30th. I also want to point out we have an expiration of a deadline. We offered to the community a discount for people who switch to Plant an App, and that's a perpetual discount, and one of those is expiring at the end of October. So if you received that email and that offer, or if you are a DNN client, I encourage you to contact Chad, reach out to Chad. And let's see, I think his, Chad, you just posted that to just the panelists. So if you'd repost
Oh, I did
that.
do just the panelists. Oh, good catch.
Yeah, go ahead and just repost that. To the
Yeah,
whole
and then I'll
community.
just save here for everyone as well. So what I was saying in the chat is if you haven't already reached out to me and talked about what we can do to secure that discount for you as I'm so used to Bogdan talking about that. I talk with him about it all the time. As Dale just mentioned, it is a perpetual discount. So that means it's not just this year or next year. It is for the life of that application as you continue to renew it. So we do have bulk discounts as well. So if you're needing, say, 5, 10, 20, 50 apps, let's talk. Let's have a discussion. It might be a lot more affordable than you think. And every person I've talked to, we've had the conversation where they're just annoyed. Oh, this is a horrible thing. This isn't going to work. This isn't going to be great. And now they're loving it. They're loving the idea of it. So
And
let's
and just to put the sales hat on for just a second, Plant an App is the collection of all of our modules and more. So if anything that you've done with DNN Sharp modules before today, you'll be able to do it under Plant an App and more. So and then walking through the remainder of these, we have at the end of the year, you'll no longer be able to renew the old DNN Sharp products that are not being continued. And at the end of March, we're discontinuing support for those. So they'll continue to run up until some outside force like updates to DNN impact them, but we will no longer be supporting them after March 31. So very important that you have the discussion to move on to Plant an App. The second part, the technical part that I wanted to demonstrate today is talk about touch signature. I am not certain that we've never talked about this before. I don't know that we have, but this is a great tool that somebody within our community asked about this week, and so I set up a demonstration about how it works. And so we'll touch on that really a little bit today. So the scenario that I've come up with is that we have a form that's being filled out by a service person on their mobile device. And so the service person is going to fill in the form, and they're going to lock the form except for doing the signature, hand their device over to the client for signature. And then as soon as the client signs the document, we're going to send them an email that has has their signature together with what they've completed. So this that's our scenario. I have a purchase form already built, and I just haven't added the signature part of it. So we'll fill this in. Can't spell my name today. Let's see if I have this email address on the clipboard, and whatever. And let's say that this was $500, and we hit approve. So at that point, the form locks and he could hand the device to the user. We're not going to cover exactly how that locks today, but it's done here through it's put into approval mode. And so we're not going to look at the code of that. We're going to focus on just adding the signature piece to this. So behind the scenes, I have this form already open in design mode. And so it has the first name, last name, email, description. And I am going to add just a couple of things to this. First, we are going to add a field called touch signature. And the touch signature field, I'm just going to call it signature. And so that is going to be its ID. And to configure this, we don't need much. It does have a, this is relating to the, to our scenario. We only want it to show up when the mode is approval mode, so it'll be hidden until we're in approval mode. Aside from that, we're going to say that it's going to upload the image to our temp folder, and we're not going to give it any kind of name. It's just going to, a GUID is going to get generated for it automatically. So that's it for collecting the signature and getting the image uploaded to our system. So it's going to be called signature, and then we're going to be able to access it using, for example, the relative URL or the absolute URL of the image file. So in addition, now we're going to have, in addition to our approve button, we're going to have another button, and this button is going to be called the signature complete button. So we'll paste that on there. It's going to be called signature complete. And we, again, only want this to appear if the mode is approve. Let's see, what else do we need? We're going to add a few actions here. One of them is we want to generate a PDF. So we'll say generate PDF. And so this is going to be the PDF that goes to the email. And what do we want the PDF to say? Well, we'll just append all the fields. So we'll get the first name, last name, email. So all the details are going to appear there. And then instead of the signature at the bottom, I'm going to add a little bit of HTML at the bottom. So I'm going to put this into HTML mode, and we'll add, it's actually going to be, we'll add a paragraph, and inside the paragraph we'll do an image tag. Source for the image is going to be the signature. We're just going to take the absolute URL to generate the image. And then because I want to control the width of this a little bit, so I'm going to say width equals 400 pixels. You can play with this to see what value will work well for you, but that will control the way that this renders. We're going to, the output of this PDF, we don't really care about what it's going to be, but we're going to put it in that same temp folder. And we're going to get this PDF by putting the relative URL that gets created into a token called relative URL. So next step is going to be that we want to send an email. So we'll add another action. So we'll send email to the client. So the to address is going to be the email that we collected on the form. The subject is going to be something like this, your order for description totaling your cost. And again, these are fields that are coming from description and your cost. So we're able to use those tokens in the email to the client. And again, in the body of this, we're going to say something like document attached. And then in the attach from token, we're going to put the relative URL. So this is going to force the URL to go be attached to the email. And then finally, I'm going to do something. I'm just going to paste. I've got another. Obviously, I'm working from a note here beside me. I'm going to redirect to a URL. I'm going to redirect to the same URL so that we actually see it on our device. So before we even get the email, they'll be able to see exactly what they signed. So let's see how this works. We'll save it and refresh our form and try again. Time it costs $1,200 and it's for AC service. And so the technician has filled this out and hit the approve button, hands it over to me to sign, and I'm going to just add my lovely signature here and say complete. And so now we get redirected so we can see this PDF. And so we see the name, the email, the AC service, $1,200, and my signature. And then if we've done this right, hopefully we'll have an email here. Let's see if we can find it. There it is. So thank you for your order, signed document attached, and same thing. So it's emailed it to the client and displayed it. So that signature field, very easy to use. It creates an image that gets uploaded to the server. You can save it. You can attach it to put it inside of a PDF. You can put it inside of an email. You can use it in a variety of ways, but that's what we're touch signature. And by the way, that's for Plant and App clients, that's an add-on. And if you, I don't believe it's on the add-ons list. You would, if you don't have it, you'll need to contact us. We'll get you the build so that you can install that, but it's very easy to do. All right, since I see no questions, I'm going to pass it on to Radu to talk about hands-on low coding.
Hey, hello.
Hello, sir.
Let me share my screen and we can start. I think it should be okay, right?
You have it.
All right, perfect. So today I would like to show you how we can use the FullCalendar library, which is here, which is actually a calendar JavaScript library, and how we can utilize some of its feature and empower it with Plant and App. So what I would like to try to do today is let me get into their demos. I'm actually interested in something specific. So this is like the look and feel that it comes when we're gonna achieve that, and we're gonna have this switching part and everything like that. This is part of the library, but what I'm interested in is actually, for example, in the week section, maybe I want to add an event. So I'm planning to just drag a section, and instead of having this alert here, I'm planning to use an action form to capture the inputs for the calendar, and also store all the information required for the calendar to work. So that being said, the first thing that we'll need to do is actually to create a page for let's create a new page for the calendar this specific calendar to live in. Let's give it a second. I think the website may have went to sleep for a second. All right, so let's go to pages. Oops. Come on, you can do it. All right, let's see. And let's name it calendar. And oops, calendar. Well, let's give some of the users permissions, as we should. Right, and let's click save, and now we have a new we have a new page for specific designing this. Let me activate the advanced settings and go on the pencil. So the first, for the calendar integration to work, we'll need two components, two modules. We'll need an HTML module that we already have here in the content pane, and we're also gonna need an action form initially to start managing the basics of the library. So what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna just add the action form here, so we'll have the components already in place, and then we can go and I can show you directly through the full demos documentation how everything how their documentation looks and how we adjust and pick what we need from their documentation. So if we go into the docs and introduction, and we go to getting started, and we choose the initializing with scripts, we'll find here the fact that we'll need to make, if we want this to work, we'll need two things. We'll need the CSS of the full calendar, and we'll need the main JS of the full calendar. We can either download everything, but my personal choice is going to be to use a CDN just to simplify the process here. So I'm going to open the CDN they recommend, and what I'll need to do is I need the main JS, and also I will need I can use the main minify CSS and the main minify JS. What I can do, I can just go and copy the URL of the main minify JS, and for the moment we are done here, and let's go back to the page. So the first thing it will be that we'll need to bring in those static files from the CDN. So I'm just gonna go and click manage form. I'm gonna click start. All right, and let's give this a name. Let's say calendar init. So we're not going to use any fields or anything in here. What we are looking for is that in the on page load section, we are planning to load those static files. So that's exactly for what I'm searching, load static files. And now I have two options. I have two options, and I'm going to use both. I'm going to use the JavaScript URLs to import the GS. I'm going to give it a name like full calendar JavaScript, and also for the CSS. So for the CSS also, I'm going to go back to the CDN and copy the minify CSS. Go back to my page, paste the URL, and give it like full calendar CSS, and give it a name. So for this part, at least for the moment, here we are done. So the next thing, so we are done with the CDN. The next thing it will be to see how the library works. So first of all, we will need a div element, a HTML element where the calendar is gonna get rendered, and also we'll need a function to initialize the calendar. So the calendar div element should stay in the HTML module above. So I'm just gonna go and click edit content of the module above, and I'm gonna go to the source. Maybe even better, I'm gonna go to the basic text editor, and I'm just gonna add exactly what they are recommending for me to use as a placeholder where the calendar to be rendered. I'm just gonna click save. All right, and now what we can see is the fact that we are looking to, we are not, the idea it will be that we are interested only in the in the script for initializing the calendar, whatever is inside the event listener here, because we are gonna use the action form to actually trigger the load of the calendar. So I'm just gonna copy what's inside of it for the moment, and I'm gonna go back to my let me exit edit mode. I'm gonna go back to my form, go and access calendar init. And in the PreInit section of the form, what I'm gonna look for is execute JavaScript and stop execution. And here is a place where you can input JavaScript, and whenever the form is gonna run, this code is gonna get executed. So it's gonna look for the calendar element that I just added earlier, and it's gonna just initialize with a day grid month initial view. So no other settings yet for it. So let me click save, and I'm gonna exit with a refresh. And now we have an empty calendar that you can see on my screen. And now we can actually start working and adding more options. A few things that I already created, I created in a separate instance. So there are different settings that you can find into the calendar view, and the one that I'm actually interested are the ones that I would like to have a switch between. Types of the view, from a monthly view to a weekly view or a daily view. So just to add those, we'll need to add this header, another setting here. So let me go back. So the setting to achieve that is, after the initial view, what you can do is add the header toolbar setting, and it's gonna tell you where to put some of the predefined buttons. Everything that I'm showing you here is documented in the full calendar documentation. So let me click save for a second and click a refresh. And now, as you can see, I have the months moved from here, and now I can start switching in different views that I'm interested in. All right. Now the next thing that I would like to happen, I would like the elements of I want to be able to click inside the calendar, so I can start selecting some of my dates. So if I want to do that, I will need to go into the calendar and add another option here, which is called, let me put a comma here, which is called selectable equals true. That being said, now if I click and refresh, now the calendar is gonna give me, for example, the option, right, I did something wrong. Give me, why are you not letting me? I think I might have misplaced something into the settings. Oh, my bad. I think I didn't save. My bad, I forgot to save. So now I can, as you can see, I can select some of the days in the calendar, or even if I go for the week days, I can do selections. Nothing is happening right now, but that's the next step that I'm planning to do. Well, maybe before we do anything with the selection, maybe we should start thinking about populating some of yeah, I think it's a better option. Let's start populating a little bit the information, some information to feed some events in this actual calendar. So let's go into the configuration side of the platform and go to the entities, and let's start creating an entity for us to let's call it a name. Let's calendar. All right. Save. All right, select. Let's create an entity to store the events that we have. So I'm gonna call this this entity event and events, and I'm gonna go to the properties, and I'm gonna say I want the event to have a title. I would like to have a start date, and I would like to have an end date. And this should be the minimal information that we are required for the moment. So An adjustment that I'm going to do to the entity is the fact that I'm going to choose local date and time for the start date and end date. And the local date and time, it's also going to store the datetime offset of each individual user that's adding depending on the browser time. And based on that, if, for example, I add an event, also Dale is going to be able to see that event, but it's going to be localized based on his time zone. So that's what's going to enable us the local datetime to see. It's going to know exactly that we added on a different time zone, so he can adjust the view based on the browser time zone, whoever is seeing this. So this is going to be a must thing to do if you are thinking to do a proper calendar, and if you are thinking on expanding on multiple time zone, you should go and choose the local date and time zone. And even if you are planning on one time zone, it's just a better approach. And it's just choosing the local date time besides the date and time. I'm gonna click save for the moment in the entity, and believe it or not, maybe I should well, I can leave it as it is. Believe it or not, this is the only entity that we are needing for this demo, for this example that we are doing today. So that's all. Let's go and start adding starting some events. So I think the first event that I'm thinking about is the Low-Code Café that we are doing. And for example, for me is today on 29, and it's happening at 6 p.m. my time. So, and it's being done at 7 p.m. So it's an event that's 1 hour long. Let me add this. This event for the moment, so we can take this information and populate it into the calendar that we already have for them. We already have. The trick it will be that, and I'm gonna go for a little bit and search for Google to show something. The idea will be that we need to feed the calendar. Excuse me, event object. The idea will be that we need to feed in for full calendar something called an event object, and the basic event object, it will be something like this. It needs to contain. We'll need to provide basically the full calendars, an object that will contain an ID, a title, a start date, and also an end date. So we have the description of all the possible options that the library supports below. What we are going to do today, where I'm interested in only passing a start date and an end date and creating an event between those 2 days, exactly how the entity is designed right now. So to do the easiest way to do that, to transform an entity to a JSON list, is to create an workflow. So let's go back to the configuration side of the application, and let's go to the workflows. And let's create a new workflow. I'm going to choose that I am going to say I want it to be in the calendar namespace exactly as the entity. I'm going to say let's say get events. So now that I have and I named everything, the first thing that we should do is to add an action which is called load entities from SQL. And to do this, we can do select everything from app.event. So this is how I'm pulling all my events. I'm pulling all my existing events and all the columns that it have, and I'm storing this list of events. I'm gonna put in a variable called actually an entity name which is called events. Next, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use a create JSON object action, where I have the opportunity to say, hey, I want a property called data to take the events entity, and I'm specifying that it's a JSON list, and I'm gonna say this is the output of the workflow. All right. I'm gonna copy that and end my workflow, and now I just go to the output of the workflow and say I want a parameter called output, and it's gonna have to contain the output of the JSON that I'm outputting, and I'm gonna click save and test, and I'm gonna see that right now I'm having, and maybe I should, let's do something like this. Maybe I can use JSON formatter to give you to give you a better view exactly of what I'm outputting here. So I have an object, a property data in an object which is containing a list of all my columns that the event it's storing right now. But I'm not interested in the majority of those things. I'm not interested in the creation date and everything like that. I'm just interested in the title, start date, and end date for me, and also the ID. So to do that, it's very to just export what I'm interested in. I'm gonna start specifying exactly the columns that I want, and when I'm specifying an alias for the column, those are gonna be basically the properties that I'm exporting in the JSON object. So I'm interested in start, and I want to be as title, and again I have I'm basing this assumption based on the example that I found in their documentation. So I need to have a property called title. Also, I have one that's called start and one that's it's called end. So let's go back and say I want start date as start. Also, I want end date as end. All right, I think, and we should be fine. Let's see. Let me click on save and click save and test again, and let's see how the object is looking right now. I see that I might have an error in my SQL execution, so I'm gonna assume right now that I'm start and end. There may be start and end. There may be some keywords that I'm not aware of, and well, end is definitely one. And yeah, now it's working as it should. So this list of my event that I have right now, let me process that as well. So this looks much more similar to the object that the library wants. What I'm seeing, I think I forgot to add the ID. So if I want to also add the ID, this is a setting that I configure basically at the SQL level. So as ID, and that's it. Basically, it's gonna take all my columns and serialize it to a JSON object with the JSON list inside. So now I should have the proper information here. The next thing that I want to do is now that I have my workflow there, as you know, workflows can be used in different places, maybe other workflows, maybe different buttons in different places in the product. But what I'm interested in today is to transform this workflow in a token. So I'm going to go create a calendar. I'm going to go really quickly and create a token, and I'm going to create a new namespace for it, which is called calendar. And after that, I'm going to start creating a new token, and I call it GetData, let's say. And the definition of it, well, I can use a database query or a Razor script, but again, I'm interested in the workflow that I just created, which is called GetEvents, and I'm interested as the default output to be the one that the JSON itself that I'm interested in. Now, let me click save and test, and now the workflow itself is getting executed with the help of this function variable, this token basically. Now the next thing that I want to do, I would like to go back to my calendar view and now start feeding this information through this token to start feeding this information to the calendar. So let's go into the calendar initialization. Go into the execute JavaScript code and stop execution, which is calling out the PreInit, and I need to pass a property which is called objects. And what I can do in this moment, I can even the trick here it will be that what I'm doing here is that I'm able to pass to put the token directly here, because what I know is the fact that what I know right now is the fact that this is gonna get basically replaced inside this code with a JSON object that has one property which is called data, and I'm gonna pull all the information that's from it. And a thing that I can do to give you a small idea of what's happening here, I can put a large text here And I'm going to put the same thing here into the large text so you can get an idea of what I'm actually doing in here. Let's say the large text can be called example of data. Let's click save and let me click refresh really quickly. And as you can see now, the calendar starting to actually display my my information from the event. And below, I think I have the this didn't. Why did this not get tokenized? Let me give me a second so I can calendar get data. Oh, okay, maybe, yeah, maybe I should have used that. Maybe I should use a static text instead and feed it here. All right. Oh, why is this not? I'm not really sure why this is not getting displayed. But the trick it will be the fact that I'm able right now to feed in the information as proper information for the calendar to work with. And also, if I go in the weekly view, I can see exactly the hours 6 to 7 that I will have to be part of the Low-Code Cafe. So now that I have what I achieve right now is the fact that I have an entity which I can manually input the start date and the end date and the name of and the title of the event, and I have a calendar that's being able to display that to me. But if you remember in the first part, I was also adding talking about adding an option to select the dates that I'm looking for and create an event based on the dates that I'm selecting directly from the calendar and leave the entity be as it is. And I'm not interested in. I think it's a nicer way to add events through dragging the specific date that you are interested in, not going and specifying the start and end date, and it's also going to give you a graphical idea of what's basically the workload of a person or multiple persons. So that being said, there's again, full calendar comes with something interesting, which is called let me see, I don't want this anymore. It's called a callback function. So the idea will be that after I specify the events, what I can do is actually I can specify a function. Oops, in a second. I can specify a function like this, which is going to get executed based on each time I select something or I click on something, this function is going to get executed. And I think the easiest way to display this logic, maybe I can put an alert for the moment. So don't worry about the syntax highlighter. It doesn't like that I'm using something like tokens inside of it, but if this is fine. Let me click save and click refresh again. Let me go, for example, in the weekly view, and if I now select a section, now you see you selected from the start date to the end date. So I have this information of the start date and the end date that I'm looking for to do the selection for. So the trick will be now the trick here now will be to pass this information from the calendar to an action form that will automatically have the start date and end date pre-selected based on what you are selecting in the calendar, and let you input the title there. And once you have all these three information, submit it into the events table, so you get the data stored into the table. So to do that, what I will need to do is to add a new. I will add a new form on the page, and I'm gonna go and add a new form. Okay, let's stay. You can stay here. You're gonna be a pop-up anyway, so I'm not really. I don't really care where you're gonna want to stay. The idea it will be something like, so I'm gonna start from scratch. So I'm seeing that we're getting a little bit close on the time, so I'm gonna just move a little bit faster in setting this form, at least for the pop-ups. I'm gonna say this is an add event module. I want to be a material template. I want the label to be at the top. I want this to be a pop-up. I want it to be note template for it to be opened differently. I'm gonna name the the pop-up title add event. I'm gonna just make it a little bit wider. All right, and I'm gonna go and add a text box into it, which is gonna be called title. And I'm gonna go add a date picker, start date. I'm gonna name it, and also I'm gonna clone this and have the end date also. I will need a button to add the event, which I'm gonna make normal. I'm gonna set it to primary. I'm gonna say that I want to be centered. And immediately after this, I want to rearrange a little bit the elements in my form. All right. And I'm just gonna click on save. Cool. Just to be a little bit proactive, so I'm just gonna set the initial values here as query string dot start, and the end date also as a query string end. Let's see, let me also pass the format of the client format. So I think we can go to mount day, year, hour, minute, and copy this also to the start date really quickly here. All right. So now that I have this set up, let's go back a little bit. The trick will be that as you can say, whenever I click on something, it's going to give me an interval of dates that I'm choosing from 2 to 4 and so on. The trick here it will be that in the initialization calendar, we can utilize the API of the front end API of Plantain app to trigger a form to open in a pop-up. So if we want to do that, and I have this prepared. Let's choose this to make a console.log, and also I will use this line here. I'm going to use this line here. I think I also need to. The idea will be that I'm choosing an action form on this page. I'm passing it two parameters. I'm passing it the start and the end, and I want this to be reinitialized each time. So the trick here it will be that I need to figure out what's the ID of the form I'm planning to open in a pop-up. So for the moment, I'm just going to click save so I don't lose the code. And now let me see. So this and now what I'm looking for is on the bottom left side of my screen. I'm having the URL which is expanded, and also I'm getting to see the underscore MID, which is 402 in this situation. So I can just go back into my calendar init form and specify this into the one that I'm looking for 402. All right. Now I can click save. Oops. And I can just click back and refresh. And that being said, now whenever I choose a section, I should get a form opened with the title and the start date and end date pre-selected, and I can input a name for the event, and this event should get saved into the actual event database. The problem is here that I didn't yet do the adding of the event into the database on the. I'm sorry, I've entered the wrong component. I didn't configure the add button. So to configure that button is going to be actually really simple and really fast. The trick here it will be to have an create new event, pass in the title, pass the start date, also the end date, and this is going to create our event into the database. And after that, I want to close the action form start the execution, which is the one that I have in add event. And also the trick it will be here that I'm adding the event to the database, but I do not want to refresh the whole page to add this event into the calendar as well. And that for that, what I'm able to do is the fact that the full calendar is providing me with full calendar add event. So it's providing me a function, JavaScript function, where I can go and add a simple event to the calendar. So to do that, I will need to expose the calendar object. So I will need to go into the calendar initialization. I need to expose the calendar so I'm going to be able to access the calendar from different other places. So to do that, what I'm going to do is go, instead of declaring a new var calendar, what I'm going to do, I'm going to say, hey, you know what, window.calendar. So I'm attaching the calendar to the window of the browser. It's going to get this. So now after that, I'm going to be able to access this calendar object from different component. And let me close this and go to add event. Yes. Let me go to the add event, and after that, let's go to the add event button. All right, let's scroll. Did I forget to save again? Oh, I'm terrible. I'm so terrible. Create new event. Let me put this really quickly. Title, start date, end date. All right. Add also the close action for and stop execution. And between of those, I would like to have a JavaScript action and continue execution. And in this execute JavaScript and continue execution, what I'm going to do is I'm going to call the calendar.add event with a random ID, the title, the start date, and the end date into the calendar. Now, if I click save and refresh, while we get into the last minute, let me go to the.
I took 2 extra minutes to get started. You're doing fine.
That's all right. And let's see. Now I can open this. I'm gonna say, is it working? And I'm gonna click add event. And now we have it into the calendar. And not only that, but we already have it in the events entity. So yes, I think that's the demo for the day. So also,
if you refresh the calendar, you'd get
the same response. So it's actually getting saved. It's not
nice.
only and it can be multiple dates also.
So if you didn't take good notes, there will be great notes on the replay of this in the Plant an App channel when it goes on the Low-Code Cafe. But Radu, that's a great technique to implement full calendar. We can sure see where we go with it next, adding some edit logic and whatever, but it's interesting to see how you wired that up to the pop-up form. Is very elegant.
Yeah, and also there are options to click on events, edit events, delete events. Everything is available, so you can just add a little bit more forms, and you can achieve a lot of things. So in the library, it's amazing. It has recurring events and everything. If you pass the proper data from the events JSON, you're gonna achieve a lot. You can achieve a lot of things.
Great. Okay. That was a great demonstration. I think it was going to be very useful, and we do appreciate your putting the time to prepare all that. It would be hard to squeeze that into 35 minutes without the preparation that you've invested. Thank you guys for spending your hour with us. There is a feedback form as part of the emails that we send out, so please send us feedback, and we'll see you next week in the Low-Code Cafe.
Bye-bye.